not politics. My actions reflect an abiding reverence for our democracy and our institutions and are in no way based on emotion of the moment or partisanship.
But Fox's Kristen Fisher says Republicans say it's exactly that and charge the Democrats with trying to weaponize the IRS. The tax law generally prohibits disclosure of someone's taxes without their approval. To that, the president says, not yet.
Until such time as I'm not under audit, I would not be inclined to do that.
The House Judiciary Committee has voted to subpoena the Justice Department for a complete, clean copy of the special counsel's report on Russian election meddling. Committee Chair, Congressman Jerry Nadler, not satisfied with Attorney General Barr's pledge to release a redacted copy several days from now.
The department is wrong to try to withhold that information from this committee. Congress is entitled to all of the evidence.
The Justice Department says there is information in the report that by law cannot be released, including grand jury testimony. Without naming them, the New York Times reports that some of the members of the Mueller team are telling associates the Attorney General's 4-page summary of the special counsel's report does not adequately portray their findings. The president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, telling Fox's The Ingram Angle.
I'm absolutely confident that the report will bear out the conclusions. No obstruction, no Russian collusion of any kind. It will bear that out. Whether they can take some facts and twist them one way or another, we're ready to rebut that.
Giuliani questions how anyone could claim obstruction when the special counsel interviewed hundreds of witnesses and completed his investigation. This is Fox News.
Are you shopping for a home loan with a low rate and a fast closing? Because that's what you get with a Bank Pacific My Home Loan. All of our loan decisions are made here by people who understand our island. So whether you're buying or building a home or looking to refinance your existing home loan to a lower rate, come see us at Bank Pacific, where we're open to closing your loan in a hurry.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply. Viva Bank Pacific.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Former Vice President Joe Biden says he will work to be more mindful after 4 women have come forward saying he acted inappropriately towards them.
I always tried to be, in my career, I've always tried to make a human connection. That's my responsibility, I think. I shake hands, I hug people, I grab men and women by the shoulders and say, you can do this.
Biden making the comments in a video released on social media. It's the first time he's spoken about the allegations publicly. He also said in that video he plans to talk more to people about issues in the coming month. Possible hint about his 2020 aspirations. A federal judge in New York on Thursday will hear oral arguments in a contempt of court case against Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk.
A lawsuit brought by the Securities and Exchange Commission is looking to hold Elon Musk in contempt for violating terms of an October court-approved securities fraud settlement. According to the agreement, Musk is required to get pre-approval from a Tesla board committee for social media posts about his electric car company. Tesla and Musk each paid $20 million to settle the case after he tweeted that he had funding secured to take Tesla private when he didn't have the money lined up. This past February, Musk tweeted about vehicle production, and the SEC says that Musk did not seek or receive pre-approval prior to publishing his tweet, which was inaccurate. And Musk lawyers say that the tweet restated previously approved disclosures. Hillary Barsky, Fox News.
Texas prisons will no longer allow clergy in the death chamber after the U.S. Supreme Court blocked the scheduled execution of Patrick Murphy last week. He'd argued his religious freedoms would be violated if his Buddhist spiritual advisor couldn't be with him. Effective immediately, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice says only prison security staff will be in the death chamber. Justice Department condemning virtually every aspect of Alabama's prison operations, giving the state 49 days to correct violations or face a federal lawsuit. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The GCC Votech Class of 79 is back. Join them on April 27th at the Onward Beach Hotel for a night of dinner, dancing, skits, and reminiscing. It's been 40 years since graduation, so take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime chance to relive the memories. There's also a memorial mass on Friday, the 26th, at the Santa Teresita Church. Be there at 5:30 for candle placement in honor of classmates who've gone before. Tickets for the reunion on the 27th are on sale for $40 a person. For details, find Connie Kiedegwa Nicholas at 488-6108 or Kathy Diaz, 777-3243. Bebus 79ers.
Hey, are you ready to afford the good life? For example, cooking in a gourmet kitchen that is as amazing as your skills. Or how about paying off tuition? Or maybe expanding your home to make room for your parents. Live beyond your dreams, within your means, with a low-rate home equity line of credit from First Hawaiian Bank. To learn more or to apply, visit any branch or FHB.com. First Hawaiian Bank. It all starts with yes. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. How well we all know that. Start the program that way every day. Today I have a piece that I got from a site called Natural News. And it talks about the militia, solution to the problem of the invasion of our southern border. And here's the title: President Trump must activate the militia to defend America's borders and, quote, repel invasions. No government spending required. With the surge of illegals now beyond the breaking point at the U.S. southern border, defending America against this escalating invasion has become the single most important national priority. To understand why this land invasion is being allowed to happen, understand that Democrats want America to be invaded by illegals because Dems want to give them all the voting rights, knowing they tend to vote 80% Democrat in elections. Indeed, these people vote for the very same left-wing polities and systemic corruption that caused economic collapse in their home countries, which is exactly why they're fleeing in the first place. If allowed to overrun America, they will destroy the nation just like they already destroyed the countries they're fleeing. If allowed to invade, occupy, and take over America, these illegal immigrants will destroy this nation from within. The votes of American citizens will be overruled by illegals who vote. American culture will be eviscerated and nullified, and the American taxpayers will see all their earnings and assets confiscated by an increasingly left-wing government that can only stay in power by handing out more benefits to the voting mass of illegals who are handed voting rights by lawless Democrats. A constitutional solution that costs the government nothing: activating the nationwide militia. Militia is a term that frightens crybabies and snowflakes, but it merely means armed citizens who are willing to aid in the defense of their own nation. Well, I don't know about that, but I'm going to finish reading the article, and then we'll come back to what the militia really is. And I've already got a phone call here on line 1. I'm going to interrupt my soliloquy about the Second Amendment and let this caller make his mark. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Bob. So, I was listening very intently on that article. I'm going to listen after I'm done. But I just wanted to throw something out to you that one of the House committees, I'm not sure if it was the Judiciary, I don't know if it was a subpoena or just a request from the Congress for the president's tax returns for the last 6 years.
Uh-huh.
And I want your brilliant legal mind's take on that.
Well, of course, the Congress, a House of the Congress has subpoena power, and it can ask for just about anything. Along the same lines, I read recently where there is a move in Texas to change Texas law a little bit when it comes to selecting electors in the Electoral College, that it would be against the law for any Texas elector to cast his vote for any candidate who had not made his tax return public. I can rule on that one pretty easily. That one won't go. But
that one's not going to fly?
Not going to fly. Would not be constitutional because you can't add to the qualifications necessary for a person to become president. But as far as the House subpoenaing the tax return of the president, my initial reaction is it probably lies. At least in theory, the only reason that a House of Congress is to investigate anything is to gather information to help it pass enlightened legislation. So I suppose the appropriate committee to issue a subpoena like that would be the one that has jurisdiction over the IRS. It seems kind of shaky, and I suspect that it would be very difficult to get a federal judge to enforce that subpoena, but that doesn't stop the Democrats.
Yeah. And while we're still talking about Constitution, what about all these different states that are coming up and saying that their electoral votes will be given to the popular vote winner? That it seems to me like they're kind of doing an end run around the Constitution as far as it comes to how elections are presidential elections are run.
Absolutely, and there's a name for that group. I've got it in my papers here, and I've had it on the calendar, but never gotten to it, and it hasn't been up on the skyline. I suspect I'll have to spend a fair amount of time discussing it. But
okay.
Article 2, Section 1 says. Section 1, second paragraph, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in Congress. So the power to determine who the electors are lies with the state legislature. So the question then becomes two questions. Is that power delegable? Can it be assigned to someone else or something else? For instance, let's say that the state of Nevada said that we'll flip coins to see who our electors are going to be. Would it be constitutional? I think not. The other problem is that there is a section in the Constitution that talks about interstate compacts, the necessity of interstate compacts to be approved by the Congress. But it is something that's out there, and a fair number of states have signed up for it. I don't know why the smaller states would even think about it, because it gives them even less ability than what they have now to influence the government. And then, of course, I'm 100% against it because it's one more step away from federalism towards a consolidated unitary national government, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. I'm going to be listening for your Second Amendment soliloquy.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. So, so going back to this squib I have here, militia, quote, militia is a term that frightens crybabies and snowflakes. Yeah. Are you frightened? You're not a snowflake.
Just a little bit, sir.
Really?
I'm just kidding.
I don't think that a cult of personality that you're building out there would consider you to be a crybaby or a snowflake. But it merely means armed citizens who are willing to aid in the defense of their own nation. Article 8 of the United States Constitution directly invokes the creation and use of the militia to defend the nation, saying that the federal government has the power, quote, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. And also to provide for organizing, arming, disciplining the militia, for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Now, I've been through this more than once on Tall Tales in our little lessons about the Second Amendment. Back to the editorial. In other words, the federal government is specifically called upon in the Constitution to use the militia to, quote, suppress insurrections and repel invasions. There is no more clear example of an invasion of our nation than what we are witnessing now with 100,000 illegals each month who are attempting to violate the law and enter the United States for the express purpose of gaining welfare benefits, voting rights, entitlements, and government handouts. Article's a little bit over the top, but they're making a point. The invasion must be repelled by all means, and while building a wall is one step toward achieving that goal, government spending will always be tied up by the Democrats who quite literally want to see America overrun with illegals. They don't care if America is destroyed so long as they get to rule over the ruins. The militia is able and capable of responding right now to the border crisis. President Trump merely needs to, quote, activate the militia by calling on them to help repel invasions. From that moment, likely tens of thousands of armed American volunteers would head to the border to defend this nation against this lawless attempt to overrun, occupy, and ultimately overthrow the United States of America. And I call my program Tall Tales. So, as I say, this article overstates its point a little bit and obviously doesn't understand the militia clauses in the United States Constitution. What this article calls for is a vigilante justice approach to the border. President Trump merely needs to, quote, activate, close quote, the militia by calling on them to help repel invasions. From that moment, likely tens of thousands of armed American volunteers will head to the border. Well, those armed American volunteers are not the militia. And I know that there is a school of thought that says, well, you know, back in the time that the Second Amendment was adopted, the militia just meant every able-bodied man in every village who had a musket hanging over his fireplace. I've never gone along with that. My analysis is that each colony and then each state had an organized militia, something like a small state army made up of citizens, etc., and that the militia gradually morphed into what we now call the National Guard. And the president has sent National Guardsmen to the border. Now, so far, it's been a volunteer operation. The president asked state governors, will you send some of your troops to the border? The president could, according to the Constitution, call up a state's militia or the state's militias, state's National Guards, federalize them and send them down to the border. There are political reasons why the president may not want to do that, but anyhow, it goes to show that the word militia in the Second Amendment is an extremely important word, a point that I've been pounding on since the very beginning of Tall Tales, usually in the context of accusing Mr. Justice Antonin Scalia of being a great jurist, but a really poor reader, because he read the word militia right out of the Second Amendment. But anyhow, that's the Second Amendment for today. We're going to go from there to the Daily News. We'll whet our whistles on the Daily News. And today, once again, miracle of miracles, the Daily News is a home-baked cake. Thank you, Real Joe Cruz. This is Zemi Ikotny. This is the time when we take a look at both editorials, the editorials of each newspaper, slice them, dice them, parse them, digest them, autopsy them, and see if we can find one that makes sense. And if we do, I use my coveted, my blue pencil here to award the coveted Blue Star. The Daily News got it yesterday after getting, I think, a 0 the day, no, got an X the day before. The Daily News, apparently the strike at the Daily News editorial boardroom is over because they produced local editorials twice in two days now instead of, and perhaps the copy and paste guy is on vacation, the one that copied everything from USA Today and pasted it into the Daily News. Maybe he's on vacation and the strike is over. Anyhow, the Daily News did its own editorial today, and I'll give you a little tip-off. Remember, I've talked a little bit about the criteria for awarding the Blue Star. A editorial has to be provocative, edgy, touch on important topics that we care about, attempt to persuade us to do something or not to do something, etc. And if it's well written, not full of grammatical or usage errors, and it meets those criteria, it's got a good chance of winning. If it is something I happen to agree with, that even increases the chance of that editorial winning. Now, I have awarded the Blue Star to editorials that advanced a policy that I didn't agree with. It can happen. I'm not going to say that I'm open-minded, etc., but, you know, I like this. I want to keep it interesting. So if everybody knows who's going to win before we start, it's not much of a game. So today, I'll give you a little heads up. The last 4 words of the editorial in the Daily News are these: the answer is privatization. Yeah, now regular listeners out there in our international radio listening audience know that I really, really like the P word. I would like to see our government get out of all of the proprietary functions that it's in and concentrate only on governmental functions. By way of historical background, we know that when the government of Guam set up in 1950, it took over a lot of things that were proprietary functions from the Navy. The Navy having set up those proprietary functions because there was really no alternative. There was no civilian economy. So the Navy ran the telephone system, the water system, the power system, the bus system, you name it. And when the government of Guam started up, it took those things over. And if for no other reason, force of habit, we still think that the government of Guam has to be involved in these proprietary functions. Now, I contrast proprietary functions, meaning actual businesses that could be operated by profit-making companies, with governmental functions, the essence of government, police, fire, corrections, and those sorts of things. And my idea is that the government of Guam should concentrate on governmental functions and get rid of the proprietary functions as much as possible. So let me plunge into this editorial here by the Daily News. And the title is, Our View, Lost Water Shows Need to Privatize Waterworks. Guam Waterworks Authority crews complete, as you were, the continued failure of the Guam Waterworks Authority to properly manage the island's water system highlights the need to privatize the agency. The Office of Public Accountability released a fiscal 2018 audit of waterworks that show the agency doesn't get revenue for about 58% of the water it pumps out on an annual basis. The main cause of the lost revenue is water leaks or breaks, followed by unauthorized or unbilled consumption. The rampant leaks in the water system have been well known and documented for years. Given the severity of the problem, you would think the agency would have made improvements to reduce the amount of water it loses on a regular basis. You'd be wrong. The audit report states that Waterworks has expanded its water loss control program to include leak detection to help reduce lost water, and is currently pilot testing satellite-based leak detection to find leaks of potable water. It also states the agency has prioritized 1. Leak repairs, 2. Rehabilitation and upgrades of main lines, and 3. The installation of monitoring and measuring devices. And yet, in 1998, the water agency lost between 12 million to 16 million gallons of water a day, or 33% to 44% due to leaks, broken meters, and illegal line taps. According to Waterworks, that was almost double the industry standard. The recent audit shows no real improvement since the audit of fiscal 2015, which reported that about 58% of the water pumped out by the agency is lost to leaks, faulty meters, and other problems. So despite all the programs, prioritization for improvements to reduce water loss, the agency has failed to make any real progress towards fixing one of its biggest problems. And yet, Guam customers are paying more and more money to the agency for its water, wastewater, and wastewater systems. It's abundantly clear that the Guam Waterworks Authority can't properly manage the island's water system. A private sector water company would work diligently to fix water loss problems, because failing to do so would waste money. To secure real and significant improvement in water operations, the answer is privatization, according to the Daily News. Well, I'm going to put in my 2 cents worth here, starting out with the idea that the water and power system are so much better since we've had since the creation of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities that there's hardly any comparison. Almost all the time at my place, if I turn on the faucet, water comes out. It hasn't always been that way. And if I flip the light switch, the lights come on. So compared to where we were in the last century, I think we're light years ahead. So I would attribute that success directly to the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. Second, I think that in a sense, having the two power authorities, water and power, under the jurisdiction of the CCU, although it's not privatization, in a sense, it's heading in that direction. Now, I really got disappointed with the power and water authorities when they took the surprise holiday at the day after Thanksgiving. You remember the governor came up, the governor was a really good guy, and he said, okay, our hardworking GovGuam employees deserve an extra holiday, so the day after Thanksgiving is going to be a holiday. And although the CCU had advanced its own autonomy time and time again, without even complying with the open government law, they took that holiday too. You might remember that. I got a little bit involved, but I don't know what the cause and effect was. But when the next surprise holiday came along, that was the day before Christmas, the two utilities continued on business as usual. So I give them high marks for that. So surprise, surprise, I'm talking about the waterworks, and guess who is on the phone? The legendary Simon Sanchez, former chairman of the Commission on the Consolidated Commission on Utilities, current member. Good afternoon, Simon.
Buenas, Senator. Buenas, Bob. I was waiting for who you were going to award the star to. I didn't want to interrupt your monologue there, but I'd love to dive into the content if that's what you want to do.
Well, dive into the waterworks then, Simon.
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple of things that disappointed me a little bit with the editorial, and some things that we at GWA have to do better. You know, the audit, that 58% water loss number, that comes from GWA. That's a number that we've been monitoring, and yeah, they compare it to 1998, but Bob, I will tell you that whatever we thought was going on with our water and wastewater system in 1998 was totally inaccurate. I'm sure we threw out numbers back then. It was run by a board appointed by the governor, but those numbers had no real meaning. And so when you try to compare a number in 1998 to 2019, I think if the PDN, my big disappointment with them, if they had sat down with Miguel Bradallo or Chairman Duenas or anybody and said, hey, this is what the audit, what does this mean? Then I think we might have clarified some things for them that, you know, they might have still written the same editorial that we should privatize. But I think they're a little misleading in some of the way they're using the numbers. And as you point out all the time, you can make numbers say anything. So the first thing is the 58% includes about 10% of that, or 20% of that 58%, is used by GWA to run the system. When we flush water lines, when we rinse out wastewater treatment plants, we're using that water. And the industry has moved away from water loss. They call it now non-revenue water, because they realize that in the running of a water or wastewater company, you're going to use some water. Now, you know how much water you're using. You're not billing for it, but it's not really correct to say that you've lost it. You're not getting any revenue for it, but you're using it and you're accounting for it. And really what that 58% means is when you measure the amount of water you pump up from your wells and you measure the amount of water that you bill customers for, the gap is 58%. But about 20% of that is actually used by GWA to run the system. So the real number, if you use the new industry standard, is still 49%, still high. And there's no disagreement that has to be addressed. But the other piece of the story that I think PDN has missed, and we at GWA have to do a better job of explaining it as well, is that when the court order came out in 2003 and they threatened to take over GWA, the first thing EPA wanted fixed wasn't water leaks. They wanted to fix raw sewage going into the ocean. And the second thing they wanted to fix was the fact that we were having boil water notices, and we could not guarantee, we weren't chlorinating the water right, we had people having to boil their water, and we were not in compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act. So when you have to deal with the kind of monumental change that we had to do at GWA and still have to do, you know, the old saying, you know, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one piece at a time, and you can't eat it all at once or you're going to choke. So the first priority of the last 15 years wasn't to fix the leaking water pipes. It was to make sure that water was safe to drink and that we would stop sending untreated raw sewage into the ocean. And we've spent the last 15 years spending about $500 million to do just that. And EPA is unhappy with us. We haven't been threatened with receivership like the trash folks. We've had to raise rates on all of us as ratepayers, but the money was used. Now, PDN thinks we should have used it to fix the leaks, but EPA and GWA agreed fixing water leaks and yet having water that's not safe to drink, you know, which is more important. Even though we're losing some water, we got to make sure that the water that consumers do get is safe to drink. So that was the first thing. The first priority was to make sure the water was safe to drink. The second priority was to make sure that when we create wastewater, we humans create wastewater, we were sending raw sewage into the ocean, and that had to stop. And we spent a ton of money on a new wastewater treatment plant in Agate, $75 million, ratepayer money. But now the Agate treatment plant is secondary treatment, which is required by federal law. We built it, we operate it, it's been working for almost a year, and we now have got that plant where it's supposed to be. Molesso is about to be complete, supposed to be. And then if you recall, remember when we used to have the outfalls in Agana that would leak right next to Agana Bay, and the smell, and surfers would get sick? We had to fix the outfalls. we had to make Agania and Northern wastewater plant at least improve the treatment to what's called advanced primary treatment. It's not secondary treatment, which is required by law, but they said, hey, get us at least to advanced primary treatment while you begin to raise rates, get more money, and migrate towards secondary treatment. So the big story really at a big picture level is over a 30-year period starting in 2005, we're going to probably spend about $1.5 billion to fix everything. But the first third of that $1.5 billion was focused on making sure the water is safe to drink and making sure the wastewater was being treated properly, or at least better than before. Right now, I'm going to a meeting of the CCU. The master plan, the 20-year master plan was updated. We went around the island last year telling people what was in it, and we project another $1 billion is going to be needed between now and 2035 to get that. Now we will tackle the leaks that are in the water system and the leaks that are in the sewer system. Where our big fear is the wastewater pipes that are leaking are mostly over the northern aquifer, which provides 70% of the water. So we got to get those leaks fixed to protect that aquifer. And so that's where the focus of GWA and EPA will now turn.
Hey, Simon?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a break here. I'd like to have you stay on, and we'll finish you up right after the break, okay?
Sure, I'll be happy to listen.
Good.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Experience the Take Care difference. Take Care members can count on accessing a high-quality, credentialed network of on-island providers, including the convenient one-stop FHP Health Center and Urgent Care, access to an extensive off-island network of providers, and the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs. You can count on Take Care to deliver comprehensive, accredited insurance coverage and quality health care when and where you need it. Take Care. Our island, your health plan. Learn more at takecareasia.com. And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So Simon, kind of summarizing here to this point, you started out with, the CCU started out with some serious problems, many, if not most of which have been fixed. You have a 30-year plan to fix the rest of them. All of these things cost money, and that's going to mean periodic rate increases to get the system up to where it should be, correct?
Yes, and whether it's privately run or publicly run, those issues still remain. We, the community, have to invest in a water and wastewater system to get it up to a modern system, and it's going to cost money. And the only, except for the $170 million we got from the Department of Defense for the Northern Wastewater Treatment Plant, which they will pay to upgrade for the Marine base and for us at no cost to us, the rest of that money has to come from us ratepayers. And so I think the final piece of the editorials, whether you privatize it or not, those needs don't change. Now, we sent a bill down, and I don't think you were in the legislature. I sent a bill down in 2004 to allow us to privatize just the operations of the system. And the legislature wouldn't pass it. They were afraid that this meant we were giving away our water to a private company, and they were worried about the profit margin that a private company would charge to not only fix it and operate it, but to make a profit. And that bill never passed. And after I tried that, and it was clear the legislature didn't want to pass it, we focused on, well, we got to meet that court order. We got to fix this system, and we, the ratepayers, are going to have to pay for it, whether we run it as a government entity or a private entity.
I remember that,
Simon.
I remember that, and I was in the legislature at that time, and there was some vocal opposition to, quote, selling our water, close quote. I was in favor of that bill, but it never had legs. I don't remember whose committee it was, but it never got moving. And of course, what we're talking about is we're not talking about selling the water. The water, so long as it stays in the ground, really doesn't help anybody. It's getting it out of the ground in a useful manner that makes, that benefits society, and that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for the water, correct?
Correct. Unlike power, where you're paying for oil, the water is free. It's the cost to get the water to your home and then to take the wastewater from your home and treat it, and so you can dispose of it. That's what people pay for. It's not actually for the water. So even when you talk about, the editorial makes it sound like we're losing revenue. No, we pump up 40 million gallons a day and we sell 16 million gallons a day. And so, and that's what ratepayers are paying for. We use about 4 million gallons a day to run the system itself. The rest of that water just leaks back into the aquifer. And now what we lose is the power for pumping up that water and the chlorination that we use to chlorinate that water. That's a real cost that we're missing, and that is something we want to attack.
But the water doesn't go away, does it?
No, it just goes back into the aquifer. Yeah. What we're losing is power and chlorine and some labor. So, and we need to address that. So the next phase of GWA's plan is to spend about $500 million in the next 5 years, of which half of it is going to go to the water system for leak repair and to improve the pressure, the way we pump the water across the system. And that's when we'll finally take a bite out of this, and we're going to try to take that 49% water loss down to 39%, about a 20% reduction in water loss. That's our plan with the money that we are going to ask ratepayers to come up with through higher rates, so we can do what the PDN and all of us want to do, finally eliminate leaks. But it wasn't like we had a choice back in 2003, let's fix leaks first, because EPA and us were more worried that the water wasn't safe to drink and that we were sending raw sewage into the ocean.
Simon,
been addressed.
Our water system, the pipes, et cetera, water and sewer system, what was the origin of that system? You didn't start out and just build a whole system when the CCU started. What was the origin of that whole system?
Well, as you know, post-war development on Guam, the military put in the system, and then after the 60s, when Kennedy lifted the security clearance and the private sector began to develop, then developers put in systems that we then adopted, and the government put in some systems. But these systems were aging, and, we were getting notice of violations in the 1980s. We already knew we had problems, but we didn't do anything about it. That's why we created the CCU. That's why US EPA threatened to take us over in 2002. And we said, work with us. We'll run the system better, and we'll begin to invest in the system. And that's what we did. But our first focus wasn't on fixing water leaks. It was to make sure the water was safe to drink and to stop sending raw sewage into the ocean. You have to pick your poisons, right? You have to prioritize. The people of Guam can't afford a $1.5 billion upgrade in 5 years, in 10 years. That's why we're spreading it out over 30 years to keep it as affordable as possible. And so we focused on the basic threats to human life, which was the raw sewage in the ocean and making sure the water was chlorinated and safe to drink. We're currently fixing up all the water tanks, and they're all being chlorinated now, but we're going to fix them up and so that they last another 30, 40 years. That's where some of your rates are going to now. Your rates are paying for that agate wastewater treatment plant that now complies with federal law that 30 years ago didn't comply, 15 years ago didn't comply.
Simon?
Rates to do it.
Back to the P word that I like so much, privatization. And I go back again to the surprise holiday after Thanksgiving. One of the things that I see as a benefit of having a private company operate our water system is they're not going to operate it like a government agency. That holiday, the day after Thanksgiving, a classic example. The governor said, we're going to take the day off. We're autonomous, but we're going to trip over ourselves, and we're going to give everybody a day off also. That was so visible. Now, if something like that so visible happens, what else happens that the public can't see that is a function of running the waterworks like a government agency instead of a private company.
Very true, but I would also say this. 70% of the rate increases of the last 15 years and 60% of the future rate increases is to pay for capital improvements. GWA is not a labor-intensive company. It's a capital-intensive company, and so you have to borrow money. And whether it was publicly borrowed or privately borrowed, and, we're investment grade now. We borrow at really good rates. Even if it was privatized, the guy's going to charge interest. And one issue would be whether he'd spread it out over 30 years or whether he'd do it in 20 years.
Yeah, but the point I want to make, Simon, is this: that I would look for efficiency, whether it's government or private. I'm looking for an efficient application of the employees to the work that needs to be done. And when you have something like that surprise holiday, it ain't there. And my sense is that private companies are better at that than government agencies. I hear what you're saying about capital intensive, but I think that's one of the things that augurs well for privatization. I think that there's a sense, maybe misguided, that people get more for their money when they have a private company do something than when they have a government agency do it.
Well, I mean, clearly there are well-run water and wastewater companies that are privately run, hired by a municipal government, or some communities just have it fully privatized. So you're right. I mean, I think private companies generally are tighter with their funding because it's private money. In this case, it's sort of you're managing public money with private management. But, I think your point is well made. But right now, there is no law that authorizes us to sell GPA or GWA. So, and it's a little bit of chicken and the egg. Does the CCU propose that, or does the legislature and the governor propose that, and then tell us to execute it like they did with GTA?
I would suggest that the CCU ought to propose it after this 35th legislature got sworn in. What little faith I had in the legislature rapidly diminished. So I'd rather see the CCU take the lead on that.
Did your confidence go up in smoke all of a sudden?
Yeah. Good point, Simon. Hey, thanks a lot for calling in and setting the record straight and helping the Daily News out here. God knows they need as much help as they can get.
Yeah, I hope they would come and interview us and get the background on the story before they editorialize. And even our good friends at the Post sometimes will write an editorial based on a limited scope, and they don't do the background. At least come and get our version of it and then opine. I always think it's a little more fair, and it's more accurate for your readers or your consumers of your editorial to always try to see both sides and then criticize us where we deserve it. We clearly have things we can do better.
Just goes to show you how important Tall Tales is, Simon.
Amen, Senator.
Good talking to you.
All right, I'm going to a CCU meeting. Have a great day.
So long. Okay, so the Daily News editorial at least evoked a response from a member of the CCU. And now let's go to the Post editorial. Going to be a little competition for that Blue Star today. And here's what the Post editorial says. Before senators rushed to approve the legislation last month, safeguards on the issue of marijuana-laced food items should have been more thoroughly discussed. Former Department of Public Health and Social Services Director James Gillen gave the supporters of the recreational marijuana a boost when he stated to the Post, "I think I'm for it because of all of the spectrum of drugs. This is the least harmful." Another way of saying it's of all the drugs out there, it's the least worst. He also offered a caveat. "I do have concerns about high THC cannabis," he said. "Guam needs a laboratory for quality control, especially with, quote, edibles, including food items using marijuana or a component of marijuana, such as tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC. Verifiable THC levels need a lab to assure we aren't producing the very potent cannabis that's available." Gillen expressed confidence that the potency issue will be addressed through the establishment of a testing lab. And we haven't been able to do that, though. The problem is there has not been a lab even for medicinal marijuana. By legalizing recreational weed, he's optimistic it will make the existence of a lab a reality. Before senators rushed to approve the legislation last month, safeguards on the issue of marijuana-laced food items should have been more thoroughly discussed, and I would say included in the bill. This idea we'll do kind of a skeletal bill, and then we'll give some agency that hasn't even been created the ability to draft rules and regulations without any standards to guide them is a really poor way to run a railroad, as the old saying goes. Okay, I'm going to take a short break here, come back a little bit more of Demi Cotney. That's probably going to take us through that big halftime show we have. And then I know I've got some interesting stuff on Facebook Live, and I'm looking forward to your phone calls. And then on the card, I've got Tall Tales and Others versus Lou LG, and Democrats versus Democrats. So stick around for more exciting Tall Tales.
Lent-friendly burgers at Chili's. Indulge in a selection of our famous burgers with the black bean patty. Black bean patties combine beans with onions, parsley, bell peppers, and cilantro. Served with dill pickles and fries. More Lenten entrees include the spicy shrimp tacos, Cajun pasta with shrimp, or grilled ancho salmon. Best of all, each entree is just $15 and comes with a refreshing Coca-Cola, iced tea, or Heineken on draft. Our fresh house salad with an entree for just $15. Chili's 3 for Me Lent menu. Available for a limited time. Chili's. More life happens here.
Guam Regional Medical City. We bring the healthcare advances of the world directly to you. We are an acute care hospital that complements your needs with our robust outpatient specialty clinics. From preventative care to critical care, we strive for consistent excellence at GRMC. Our core philosophy is where patients are partners, which means we work as a team to make a healthier version of you. For more information about GRMC, visit us at grmc.gu.
So back to the editorial. Before senators rushed to approve the legislation last month, safeguards on the issue of marijuana-laced food items should have been more thoroughly discussed. I agree. The legislation indicates there will be testing of marijuana products, but the legislation falls short of including clear language that a testing laboratory should exist before, not after, recreational marijuana becomes law on Guam. Well, come midnight tonight, it is the law on Guam. So another concern surrounding the use of edibles is that some products available for retail sale are packaged to resemble gummy candies, lollipops. Well, that might appeal to you, right, Real Joe Crew? Don't you come to work sometimes with a lollipop stuck in your mouth?
No, sir. I think you got me confused with Kojak.
You're right. Same haircut. You and Kojak, same haircut. Okay, raising the chances of accidental poisoning among young children, a federally published report has pointed out. Children as well as adults and household pets may unintentionally consume edibles if they are not properly safeguarded. According to the 2016 report, quote, Tasty THC, Promises and Challenges of Cannabis Edibles, published by the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health. Cannabis-related calls to poison control centers in states that have decriminalized marijuana increased by 30% per year, the report states. In contrast, the rate of cannabis-related calls to poison control centers in non-legal states showed an average increase of only 1.5%. From 2005 to 2011. The report adds that the review of National Poison Data System data showed a similar increase in edible marijuana-related calls to poison control centers from 2013 to 2015. The report adds suggests that accidental exposures may become more common as more states legalize recreational or medical cannabis use. Some may argue that prescription pills in household medicine cabinets can be accidentally taken by children too, but the difference is these medicines aren't usually disguised as gummy candies or cookies or, real Joe Cruz, lollipops. The most prominent difference between ingesting and smoking marijuana extract is the delayed effect of ingestion, the report states, adding consumers often do not understand this aspect of edible use and may consume a greater than intended amount of the drug before the drug has taken effect, often resulting in profoundly adverse effects. The U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention published its morbidity and mortality report in 2015. The death in Colorado of a 19-year-old man who ate marijuana-laced cookies bought by his 23-year-old friend. The CDC states a police report indicated that initially the 19-year-old ate only a single piece of cookie, as directed by a sales clerk in a Colorado shop. Approximately 30 to 60 minutes later, not feeling any effects, he consumed the remainder of the cookie.
Oh, no.
Well, I do that all the time. I'll tell you, when there's famous Amos cookies around, I'm a cookie monster. During the next 2 hours, he reportedly exhibited erratic speech and hostile behaviors. Approximately 3.5 hours after initial ingestion and 2.5 hours after consuming the remainder of the cookie, he jumped off a 4th-floor balcony and died from trauma. Now, I keep hearing people come on and say, you know how many people died from an overdose of marijuana? Well, here's the answer: none. Yeah, well, this kind of looks a little different, doesn't it? I guess it doesn't count if you have an overdose of marijuana and then jump off a 4th-floor balcony, because that figures into the statistics of how many people died from jumping off 4th-floor balconies. I got it. The autopsy found marijuana intoxication as a chief contributing factor, CDC stated. Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol and delta-9 carboxy THC, an inactive marijuana metabolite, were found in the autopsy. Absent the Guam legislature's thorough discussions on safeguards on edible marijuana and the effect to young people of its potency, this can be something to ponder. As one senator more recently said in the context of defending her vote for recreational marijuana, we want our children to grow safely and successfully and strong wherever life may take them. We all need to help make their path safe as much as we possibly can. So let's see, I've probably got somebody online here who is going to, well, it's Kellis. So good afternoon, Kellis.
Hey, Bob. A couple of years ago, I went to Colorado and then to Washington State. So I can't remember where this happened, but I remember hearing it on the news. A young child, a toddler, like 5 to 6 years old, ate his dad's brownies. But so evidently, like you were saying, the guy with the cookie, they told him to eat like one cookie. Well, they told this man to take one piece of the brownie, you know, but the young child saw a tray of brownies and ate the whole tray. So I can't remember if it was in Colorado or Washington State. I don't know the final outcome, but I remember the child was in a coma and it was at the emergency room. Last that I heard.
Okay, well,
because a kid if he sees a tray of brownies or like you're saying cookies or gummy bears, they're not going to ask, "Hey mom, hey dad, can I have a brownie?" They're going to just take it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Kellis. Well, thanks for adding that to the conversation. I'm going to break for our big halftime show. Thanks for calling in.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Demanding the whole report. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The House Judiciary Committee voting to try and put some legal muscle behind their insistence on seeing the entire report from the special counsel.
A party line 24-17 vote in the House Judiciary Committee authorized subpoenas for special counsel Robert Mueller's full report on Russian election interference.
The department is wrong to try to withhold that information from this committee. Congress is entitled to all of the evidence.
Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler set a deadline for the full report. The Attorney General says Congress will get a redacted version by mid-April. The committee also okayed subpoenas for 5 former Trump administration officials, all believed to have been interviewed in the special counsel's obstruction of justice investigation.
Fox's Jared Halpern, the president's attorney Rudy Giuliani, telling Fox's The Ingram Angle, claims the president somehow obstructed the probe. Just don't hold up.
What kind of obstruction was this? Mueller got 500 witnesses, 1.4 million documents, spent upwards of $40 million, got to his conclusion without anybody interfering with him. So, God almighty, this would be the strangest obstruction case I ever saw.
The Judiciary Committee subpoenas have been authorized but not yet served. Opening another front, the House Ways and Means Committee now asking the IRS to hand over 6 years of the president's past personal and business taxes. That's generally prohibited by the tax laws. Former Vice President Joe Biden says he'll change.
I worked my whole life to empower women. I've worked my whole life to prevent abuse. I've written, and so the idea that I can adjust to the fact that personal space is important, more important than it's ever been, is just not thinkable. I will.
In a video released on social media, the former vice president did not specifically address complaints by several women of inappropriate contact. This is Fox News.
Shrimp and guacamole for Lent at Subway. The all-new shrimp and guacamole combines generous portions of whole shrimp and a spread of guacamole served on freshly baked bread, paired with vegetables cut fresh daily in restaurants and sauces that are sure to excite your taste buds. Hurry in, it's only available for a limited time. Other fresh Lenten flavors include the classic tuna or the mouth-watering greatness of our seafood sensation. Don't forget the Veggie Max, a delicious and tasty vegetarian patty. Visit any of our convenient locations today. At Subway, you make it what you want.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
What will be the impact of marijuana in the workplace? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll take a peek at information we all may be affected by in the not-too-distant future.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
NATO, the North American Treaty Alliance, marking its 70th anniversary today.
NATO's birth in 1949 was welcomed by President Harry Truman.
If there is anything certain today, if there is anything inevitable in the future, it is the will of the people of the world for freedom and for peace.
But 70 years on, there are strains in North America and Europe's defensive alliance.
And we have to be frank.
Addressing Congress yesterday, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg echoing President Trump's complaints that allies don't spend enough on defence. He said, we must overcome our differences. In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
President Trump says he has confidence in the Secret Service after a Chinese woman was arrested on the grounds of his Mar-a-Lago resort over the weekend.
We'll see what happened, where she's from, who she is, but the result is they were able to get her, and she's now suffering the consequences of whatever it is she had in mind.
The woman had a laptop, several cell phones, and a thumb drive with malware on it. The Secret Service is expected to brief the House Oversight Committee about the arrest. Senate Democrats are asking the FBI to look into any security concerns at all of the Trump properties. Police in Newport, Kentucky, questioning a boy that neighbors say was acting oddly. They heard a strange explanation from him. The 14-year-old told them he was Timothy Pitson, who hasn't been seen since his mother committed suicide 8 years ago in suburban Chicago. The boy said he was recently being held by 2 male kidnappers in the Cincinnati area, but he escaped from them. Family members say they are hopeful but uncertain there will likely be a DNA test done to confirm the boy's claim. Along the Maryland shore, 2 people have been killed in a huge fire in a row of townhouses at Chesapeake Beach. 8 firefighters injured trying to rescue the people inside. The buildings collapsed on them. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The stations of Choice Broadcasting would like to congratulate Burger King on their 30th anniversary.
Give yourselves a round of applause.
Thank you for serving Guam with your great tasting food from your friends here at 93.3 The Point.
Happy anniversary, Burger King.
Help celebrate Earth Month with 93.3 The Point and the return of the Upcycle Mascot Showdown. Stay tuned for details on the upcoming live event and how you can support your favorite school. The Upcycle Mascot Showdown, brought to you by Lolita Kamet from Remax Diamond Realty, the Agana Shopping Center, Sylvan Learning Center, PBS Guam, and 93.3 The Point.
Get a free Polar Pop any size when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a free coffee any size when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get $5 off any Circle K car wash package when you purchase $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy.
Well, thus ends another exciting Tall Tales halftime parade. The marching band, the drill team, the synchronized card sections in the grandstand, etc. Always a good time. And now we're back finishing up Zemi Ikatni. I've spent a little time on the Post editorial, which is talking about very potent cannabis. So I know I've got some Facebook comments dealing with both cannabis and marijuana. So I think, Real Joe Cruz, it might be a good time to welcome people back, right?
Welcome back.
So Lynn, Vince, Bora, Polino, welcome back. And I appreciate that smiley face. Tom Van Ingen, Half a Day, Bob, and Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, the cult of personality continues. And Jesse Limtiaco, quote, back home, smoking legal, close quote, and then the word Drake. Is there a particular meaning for the word Drake?
That's a singer, sir. I think he was probably quoting a singer in a song.
Oh, okay, back home, smoking legal, and then it's by a singer named Drake. Well, okay. Good for Drake, but Jesse Limtiaco, it's not legal to smoke marijuana on Guam. Sorry about that, Real Joe Cruz. No. Why do you think it's legal?
It's now legal.
Okay, because?
Because the gateway is open.
Do you want to try that in English or Chamorro?
Yeah, I don't think it's legal yet.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think it's legal because Governor Lulian Guerrero signed Clint's bill, right? But when is a bill effective?
I think a year after.
Midnight on the day that it's signed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So we've still got about, let's see, a little less than 7 hours of sanity left. Yeah, so it becomes, that bill goes into effect at midnight today, as all bills do. Midnight on the day it's signed, midnight the day the governor's veto is overridden, midnight on the 10th day, whatever, but not when the governor puts pen to paper. A technicality, certainly. So then we've got James Howard, Lanya Jose. He's getting on Jose's case before Jose even says anything. I guess it's a prophylactic Lanya, huh? And then James Howard, the House always wins. I think he's probably talking about the editorial dealing with Waterworks. Daryl Taggarty, I contributed a local column to the PDN. Ran today. Have you seen it? I saw it, Daryl. Pretty interesting. Of course, I could expect nothing less from a person who has hosted Tall Tales. It's hard to imagine someone who is a host of Tall Tales opining on anything in a manner that wouldn't be interesting. I've got Albert Elias on afternoon. Bob, he says, and I say, Semper Fi, Albert. James Howard. Blue Star goes to Dr. McNugget. He makes the best editorials that impact the world. Well done, sir. I'm going to get to Dr. McNugget's op-ed piece a little later on in the program here. Jesse Limtiaco, do not privatize our water. It belongs to the people, not a corporation. Well, actually, I don't know about that. You know, we talked a little earlier that your water bill is based on how much it costs to get the water out of the ground and to that faucet on your sink. So if we say, well, it's our water and we don't want anybody touching it and it stays in the ground, what good does it do us? And then let's see, where was I here? Kind of lost track of where I was here. Yeah. James Santos Servino, a professional engineer. Privatize all utilities. Government is too inefficient. That's kind of the case that I made when I was chatting with Simon. Jesse Limtiaco, that shouldn't be an excuse to privatize our water supply. The fact that government is too inefficient shouldn't be. I don't know that it would call it an excuse, Jesse. I would call it more of a reason. Jesse, let's see, Gabby Leon Guerrero, good afternoon, Bob. Good afternoon, Gabby. And when it comes to being Gabby, that's kind of my job, isn't it, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Brad Hewitt, oh boy, this ought to be good. James Howard, don't let him use the jetty mind trick on you. Maybe he's talking about Simon and his rap about the way that the CCU has dealt with the problems with the waterworks, which I think Simon makes an awful lot of sense. You got to give him that. And although my bias is towards privatization, Simon makes a very good argument that the problems remain the same, private or public. My only or my fundamental difference is that I think private companies do things better, cheaper, and more effective than the government does. And I keep coming back to this crazy holiday after Thanksgiving as just a small way of making my point. And Jesse Limtiaco comes back. The military leaked PCB into the Cocos Lagoon, but the EPA didn't sue themselves for that contamination. I don't know that the EPA, if you're talking about the national government EPA, I don't know that the EPA, I don't remember a case, it's styled EPA versus EPA. I don't think that ever happens. I think what Jesse's referring to is that none of you younger fellas would remember this, but 1/5 of Cocos Island, I think it's the Western Fifth, at one time was the home of a Coast Guard station. a LORAN station, Long Range Aid to Navigation. And there probably were a dozen Coast Guardsmen down there and some electronic equipment. And electronic equipment, at least at that time, made some use of polychlorobiphenyls, a nasty chemical that you wouldn't want to get too close to. And apparently some of that PCB leaked into the Cocos Lagoon. I don't know what the final disposition of that was. I don't know that, and I don't know what the effects of leaking the PCB into Cocos Lagoon were, but that LORAN station shut down like 1965. I think that was even before we had an Environmental Protection Agency. Anyhow, I guess Jesse thinks it's important because he put it in the middle of this particular debate. James Howard, I was going to say let's blame the cannabis, but now it's legal. Dang. How did that happen? Well, we still can, James, because it's not quite legal yet. And, of course, it's still against federal law. And then Tedo comes along and says, are residents allowed to drill water on their private land to get their own water? I'm going to come back to that after I answer this call here. Hello.
This is Tom. How are you?
It's our Tom. Good afternoon, Tom.
How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great, Tom.
I just got something real quick and something that is totally out of the subject. Do you think it'll be worth my while to sue a restaurant here on the island for deceiving me in their advertisement? I'll give you an example of what happened. I saw a picture of their product on the newspaper that I could get a free newspaper if I buy their meal. And on their meal, it's a breakfast item, and there are 4 slices of bacon that it looks like at least 1/8-inch thick on each one of them, and they're at least 6 inches long. So I got tempted, and I went over to this restaurant, and I ordered that meal that I saw on the newspaper, right? And when I got it, after I already paid for it, I got it. The bacon is thinner than the newspaper, and it's all coiled up like spaghetti. It has no resemblance of the picture that I saw in the newspaper of the advertisement. So that they deceived me after I already paid for the meal, and they refused to give me my refund. They said they already cooked it for me, and they cannot take it. They can't take it. They can't sell it to another customer. So I'm stuck with the money that I already gave.
Yeah, we just lost him.
We lost him. Tom, call us back, and while you're dialing, I'm going to try to answer your questions. Can you sue the restaurant under those facts? Well, you start out with a proposition that you can sue anybody for any reason or no reason at all. A better way of phrasing the question is there a chance of recovering? And I would say that on the facts that you present, by the time you pay your filing fees and hire your attorney, etc., even if you prevail, you've put yourself to an awful lot of trouble. I don't know off the top of my head what the law of false representation is when it comes to advertising food in a newspaper. I suspect there are standards. I'm just not aware of them. But, of course, Tom, you're never going to go back, and you're probably going to go tell your friends, if you're interested in bacon, don't go down there. Buy your newspaper somewhere else. Right, Tom? So you said you had 2 things, Tom. So if you can call us back, we'll put you back on the air. Okay, so that was our Tom. A bad experience with a local restaurant and a newspaper ad. So where was I here? Yeah, I think Tom's dialing in again, Real Joe Cruz. Tom? Hey, Tom. It's Michael. Excuse me.
Yes.
Hi, Michael.
Sorry. Sorry, it just reminded me of being at a restaurant the other day, and I saw the plate, and it was spaghetti, and I said, oh. I said, do you know how much, it's hard for me to tell how much spaghetti I get from that picture. So she says, well, just a minute, I'll show you. So she brings out a plastic box, which is nothing like up on the window. And I said to her, and she was of the right age, I'm 72, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, I said, oh, so your menu is a catfish menu.
Mm.
Now, catfish is a new term that kids use
Sure.
when somebody's posting a picture that's not them.
Right.
And she started laughing. But I will tell you, the majority of the menus I see today would definitely fall into the catfish category.
Hey, good call. Good call. Catfish menu, huh?
With no catfish.
Yeah. Is it okay if I borrow that one myself, Michael? I like it.
Yeah. There's a couple guys that run around doing catfish, or a little program on TV where they actually catch up with the people. They track their face, they track their number, and then they confront them, as to why did you post this picture, and why did you do this? And I mean, there's a lot of emotions involved when somebody does that for somebody who's been hanging on to a vision in their mind, which really doesn't pan out.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So catfish, as we know, are bottom feeders, so that's where the term came from.
Yeah. Okay, well, I learned something new today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Enjoy your show. Trust me, I do.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm still looking for where I left off here at Tall Tales. Bear with me for just a second. Here I am. Tedo Guaje, are residents allowed to drill water on their private land to get their own water? Well, according to Jesse Limtiaco, it's not their own water. It's the people's water. And again, I'm not real sure the answer to that question. Water law is very complicated, and it may very well be that you need a government permit to drill a well on your own land, Tedo. I will see if I can find that out and intersperse my dialogue with that some other day. Jesse Limtiaco, life was good on Guam in the 80s and the population was smaller. Yeah, well, if you wanted to see something, Jesse, you should have been here back in the early 60s. The population was a lot smaller. Pierre Tarin, one of the main resentment from the public at large is the obvious lack of reaction from GWA when a break is signaled to them. It took 5 months and dozens of notifications for them to fix a break in my neighborhood. And I've seen these geysers myself that last, a little while. Jesse Limtiaco, why did the EPA sue Guam Waterworks? And the answer was because the Guam Waterworks was putting raw sewage into the ocean. And then he goes on to say, we are not like the states that have the tax base to pay it to meet the federal standards. We are not like the states that have the tax base to pay it. Hello, Jesse. We get all of the federal taxes here. No state gets all of the federal income tax paid within its borders. We've got a much larger revenue base than any of the states. Okay, it's not that we're lacking in revenue, we're lacking in restraint. Okay, Jesse Limpianco, or As You Were. Joe Cruz. This is not you, real Joe Cruz. This is another Joe Cruz. Never mind this water talk. Cannabis umbi like Gatson. See, Tanya and I see Joe Cruz, Quintosi, and cannabis. James Howard, don't fall to the dark side, Bob. Once you go down that path, you can never come back. You know, I'm not going to go down that dark side, James Howard. Thank you. Pierre M. Tarine. Yet, Jesse, government inefficiencies are more often than not major reasons why the public end up backing up privatization. James Howard, you're out of order, Judge. Cannabis is a moot point. It's legal. Well, I think I'll decide whether I'm out of order or not, but James Howard overruled. Yeah. First of all, it's not legal until midnight, so as a matter of law, you're wrong. And then second, the fact that Lou signed a piece of paper at the commissioner's conference room doesn't make it legal. It's still against federal law. So I guess I've mentioned that before. Pam Duvall, it's the Gatewood, it's the gateway, blah, blah, blah. That sounds like something I would have said, the blah, blah, blah part. Another Joe Cruz. Blah, blah, blah. It's done already. Stop crying. Post, Bob, and Tom. Everyone against it. You lost. You lost again.
Oh, dum, dum, dum.
Yeah, well, you know, there's an old saying here, another Joe Cruz. Nobody likes a poor loser. But even less palatable is a poor winner. And on to Jose Martinez, the real Joe Cruz, always fishing. And then he says, dang it, I bit. And then James Howard, objection, Bob, it's a plant. Objection, Judge, it's a plant. Was he talking about catfish? Jose Martinez, evidence marijuana gives you a speech impediment. Blah, blah, blah. Jose Martinez again, neti is a plant. Bet you won't be eating it in a salad or smoking it. James Howard, yep. He ate the brownies and then he saw Jesus. I don't know if that's funny or not. He ate the brownies and apparently he died. Brad Hewitt. So let's see, James Howard, and then Brad Hewitt, I'm commenting on it's a plant, and Brad Hewitt comes back and says, so is tobacco and hemlock. James Howard, yes, but you don't eat or smoke them. Man, they are poisonous. Be careful, brother. Well, with respect to hemlock, you got to have to check with Socrates on that one. All of you Greek history buffs. Jose Martinez, point is, just because it's a plant or, quote, natural doesn't, close quote, doesn't make it safe. James Howard comes back and says, this is my most favorite part of the show. James Howard, 12 a.m. Well, I hate to be so pedantic, but there is no time of the day known as 12 a.m. Did you know that, real Joe Cruz? If I said, I'll meet you at 12 a.m.,
Yeah.
That time never arrives.
I would say 2,400 hours.
Then I would know what you were talking about, or 000 hours. I would know what you're talking about.
0 dark 30.
Yeah, because here's how it works. You know, we start out with midnight, and then 1 a.m., 2 a.m., etc., on down to noon. And noon at 12 o'clock, it's not 12 p.m. or 12 a.m., it's just 12 m. And then we start 1 p.m., etc., all the way up to 12 p.m., which is midnight. And a little explanation here, which I think all of our international radio listening audience expects when we get into this stuff. The M stands for meridian.
Oh.
And the A stands for ante, and the P stands for post. So it's a Latin phrase, ante-meridian, post-meridian. Meridian means when the sun is most nearly overhead. So it means 12 m, a time when the sun is most nearly overhead. Morning is ante-meridian, afternoon is post-meridian, or p.m. Therefore, midnight is 12 p.m. And there is no 12 a.m. So, James Howard, 12 a.m., you go ahead and light up. You got my blessing. Because it'll never occur. All right, Jose Martinez. Laughing out loud. And then we've got Mo Atgidun, he has been listening on the radio. Well, good for you, Mo. But then you have obviously got on Facebook, Joe Cruz. Here we go with Tom's Tears. Maybe that could be a regular part of the program, Tom's Tears. And then another Joe Cruz says, mad at the bacon, Tatlu. Yeah. James Howard, sue them, Tom, $1 million. And then Jose Martinez said, will cost more to sue them than the cost of the meal. A point I think I may have made, yeah. Nate Horn, something didn't look as good as the picture. Stop the presses. Joe Cruz, Tom needs cannabis because the bacon upsets him. Damn, Tom, you got issues. Come on, another Joe Cruz. Be kind to Tom. He is a well thought of member of the Tall Tales posse. Jose Martinez, in the restaurant business, every bad experience is multiplied by 3 when they tell their friends. True enough. James Howard, Tom didn't read the fine print again. Jose Martinez, the fine print was the bacon. Kaz Endo, Senator Bob, general rule, not exactly as shown to be included in the photo if it's been modified for advertising. Okay, makes sense, I guess. So I'm coming up here to the 7th inning stretch, and I didn't notice that Jack Hattick is suited up for today's game.
Yeah, I didn't see him in the dugout or in the stands.
Yeah, well, yesterday I think he distinguished himself by making a head call right after the 7th inning stretch. So we'll see what he does today.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
What will be the impact of marijuana in the workplace? I'm Jerry Robertson. At 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll take a peek at information we all may be affected by in the not-too-distant future.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
It's a seafood celebration on the Lent menu, now back at King's Restaurants. Your tasty favorites like salmon curry, orange shrimp, and whole deep-fried parrotfish will have you swimming with flavors from the sea. Our fried rice with salmon or shrimp will make ordering easy and delicious. It's a seafood celebration on the Lent menu. Available all day, every day, just for Lent, and only at King's.
flock of ushers have invaded the stands right after the seventh inning stretch. They're doing an all-points bulletin for Jack Haddock. Oh, wait a minute now. Here's a message on the center field scoreboard. What does it say? We can't find Jack. So there must have been 25 ushers out there looking through the whole ballpark for Jack Haddock. And then they posted that sign on the electronic billboard out there in center field. We can't find Jack. It's funny, we never have any trouble finding Jack here in Tall Tales, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Cazendo again. Senator Bob, general rule is, quote, not exactly as shown to be included in the photo if it's been, quote, modified for advertising. And I guess I see what you're saying there. If you take a picture, if you whip out your phone and take a picture of a piece of bacon, by the time it hits that glossy menu, it's probably not going to look exactly the way it did when you took the picture. I kind of get that. And as a side note, interesting, if you go to Japan and you look in the show windows of restaurants, they have plastic replicas of everything they serve inside. And the plastic replica is oftentimes looks like it's good enough to eat, and what they serve, there's a one-to-one correlation between the plastic replica and what they actually serve in the restaurant. So anyhow, thanks, Kaz. I know you're in the advertising game, so thanks for that clarification. And then James Howard comes up with something I certainly can't disagree with. James Howard says, this show is awesome. It is, indeed, it is awesome. And then I've got another Joe Cruz, the bacon Umbiligatzung. It was curled up, and I was mad at sa bacon umbi. Let me see who I've got on the phone here. I've got our Tom is back. Okay, welcome back, Tom.
How you doing, Bob? It seems like the pro-cannabis people keep cutting my phone off.
I wouldn't be surprised. You know, they were really hot on pulling out all the stops and getting that bill passed, and I suspect...
I did not know that I was going to cause so much commotion about my bacon. All I want from this restaurant is just leave me and my bacon alone. What I see on the picture is what I want to get. That's all I'm asking for. And that's not asking too much, right?
No, but I think you got a good point on that cannabis bit. I don't know. This is just speculation on my part, but I got a feeling that the pro-cannabis folks were saying if there were only some way we could silence Tom, we'd get that cannabis bill through and the governor would sign it. So that's probably why your connection got busted. And then I got just one more thing to say, Tom, and I'll let you go, and that is everybody on Tall Tales is looking to you to bring home the bacon.
That's good. That's good. But my second thing that I want to make a comment on is the Democrats are at it again. They send a Chinese woman into the Trump property trying to plant evidence so the Democrats can use it against Trump again.
Of course.
I got a gut feeling that was what was that about. So when they investigate that woman and they interrogate her, she's bound to confess. I wonder how much money she got from the Democrats to do that. She almost got through with it until she got caught.
Yeah, well, you got to watch them every minute, Tom.
But anyway, as far as the advertisement is concerned, I don't know why it doesn't bother people when they walk into a McDonald's or a Wendy's and they see a beautiful picture of a stack of beef in between two buns. It looks so beautiful, yet when you get your order, you wonder where's the beef. It's hidden in the bun.
I'll never forget that mature lady who, when served a sandwich, at the top of her lungs said, "Where's the beef?"
That's the same fundamental as well. Where's my bacon, darn it? I want to see an 8-inch thick bacon by 6 inches long, like what I saw in the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Bob. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, Tom. I guess what we got to do is work on a truth and bacon law here on Guam, right? Okay, so, and then Jose Martinez, some states it's illegal to collect rainwater even on your own property, and that's true in at least New Mexico, and I expect some of the other western states. The rainwater that falls on your roof must be allowed to go to the ground. You can't collect it in big barrels, and you can't turn it into irrigation. So the water law is very complicated, and in a sense, there are a couple of different approaches. Water law in the eastern part of the United States is quite a bit different than water law in the western part of the United States. You get into things like riparian rights. In the western United States, there are no riparian rights. The fact that you live next to the river doesn't mean you can stick a pipe in the river and suck water out of that river. So I don't know exactly what the water law is here on Guam. I know Don Parkinson had a bill. Maybe I'll see if what I can find out on that. Okay, and then James Howard comes back after Jose Martinez's comment about illegal to collect rainwater. James Howard says, touche. And then James Howard also says, I'm not a crook. This would be James Howard doing his Richard Nixon imitation. Your president is not a crook. Unfortunately, he was. So that's our Facebook comments for today. I suppose I ought to award the coveted Blue Star today. So here's the decision. I'm going to rule from the bench on this one. I'm not going to take it under advisement and issue a written opinion 6 weeks from now. The Daily News fills the bill for timely, provocative, edgy, etc., call to action, and so on. And, of course, it uses words that I like to see in an editorial. The answer is privatization. Now, I would side with Simon, and that is that the Daily News editorial comes very close to getting the CS award. You remember that one, Real Joe Cruz? The Cheap Shot Award. Yeah. And then on the other hand, we've got the Post, very potent cannabis should be part of the discussions. Well, I think as far as the Post is concerned, they've zeroing in on a rather small part of a rather large issue. And when you get into should have, could have, didn't, it's not the kind of thing that good editorials are made of. Good editorials should attempt to influence future conduct. Now, sometimes you got to be critical of past conduct in order to prompt some kind of future conduct. But taking it all into consideration, and with apologies to Simon Sanchez, who made a very good case in defense of the waterworks, I'm giving the coveted Blue Star today to the Daily News. Yeah, order in the court. Yeah, so the Daily News is won twice in a row. I hope they don't go on a long vacation now because they've won twice in a row. Okay, so from there we go to the from there we go to the card, and the first item on the card is Tall Tales and Others versus Lou LG. Okay, it's Tall Tales, comma, et al, E-T-A-L, period, in italics. So get out your Law and Order notebooks again. So when you see those two words, et al, E-T-A-L, period, in italics, in a legal document, what that means is and others. So it's Tall Tales and others versus Lou. I think Lou made a big mistake by signing the marijuana law for the reasons that I have so eloquently and accurately described over the last several weeks on this program. So I am not in favor of her decision. I don't think it was a reasoned decision. I watched her presentation, most of the presentation on TV this morning, and unfortunately none of the news turkeys in attendance asked Lou what I think is one of the key questions, which is, if I had been there with my press card, I would have said, Governor, how do you rationalize signing a bill that's against federal law when you have taken an oath to uphold the laws of the United States? I still see that as a key question, and I haven't seen an answer. I haven't heard an answer to that question from any of the 8 senators that voted for it or the governor who has now signed the bill. And until a satisfactory answer comes down, my support will be absent for sure. I think that being a public servant embodies a little bit more than an overpowering desire to use your office to scratch your own itch, if that's what was going on. I don't know. I'm perhaps speculating here again. Also, today, the 4th of April, let the record show, Real Joe Cruz, that on the 4th of April, I am filing my petition for a writ of I told you so. Yeah. A petition for a writ of I told you so. So that when, and my prediction is that no good will come from this. And as, mixing some metaphors here, as the large chickens come home to roost in the cannabis plants, I will be in a position to say, back on the 4th of April, remember my petition? Well, now I'm going to say it. I told you so. I told you this was not a good idea. So let the record show that. Now, when I say Tall Tales and others, I'm not the only person or the only one or the only entity who is not in favor of the cannabis bill. And I'm going to ask you to keep your Law and Order notebooks out for a few minutes here. We're going to talk a little bit about the law. But you'll recall the day that the bill was so rapidly passed, and that was one of my objections. Even had I not been opposed to the bill, I was not happy with the way that the speaker managed that bill at the last hours. You recall, Gene Santos had a town meeting set up at the mayor's office in Tamuning for 6, and the several senators wanted to adjourn so that they and others could attend that meeting. And there was this rush to get the bill engrossed. They put aside other matters, got the bill engrossed so they could vote on it on that day and, in effect, moot out that town meeting. Whereas the usual way that the legislature does business, they'll have several bills on the agenda. They'll go through each of the bills as they finish discussing. There will be a motion to put the bill on 3rd reading, which almost always passes. All of the bills go to 3rd reading. They're all engrossed. And then the legislature comes back and for one session does nothing but vote on the engrossed bills. They didn't do that this time. They were in a rush. to get that bill engrossed and signed in order to moot out that town meeting, thereby making enemies where it wasn't necessary to make enemies and forfeiting the opportunity to perhaps bring a few more people along with them. Okay, we're heading into the home stretch, so I'm going to wrap up the home stretch here on this item in the card. Tomorrow, I'm going to get into Democrats versus Democrats and tell you everything you ever wanted to know about Boot Edge Edge. Do you know who Boot Edge Edge is?
No, but I'm looking forward to learning.
Yeah, well, Boot Edge Edge is the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and he's running for president. And the rumor that I'm starting is he wants to change his name to Mueller.
It's Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary, and to celebrate, we are giving away a new Kia Soul LX, a Mazda 3i Sport, the popular Honda Civic LX, and 30 Manila Flyaways during our 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway. Win 3 great cars from Triple J Auto Group, 30 Flyaways from Philippine Airlines, plus thousands of prizes from Burger King and Foot Locker when you play Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway.
Attention homeowners, if you don't have a solar energy system on your roof from Micronesia Renewable Energy, now is the time to get one. MRE solar energy systems now come with battery storage for zero money down. This means that your home will have power even when the island power isn't available, like during power outages or during and after storms. The inconvenience of not having power for your home is a thing of the past. Don't be left in the dark. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE, the smarter choice.
So it's the home stretch, and I've got about 8 more minutes until the real Joe Cruz plays Ravel's Bolero. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Clint's bill, which is now, we don't know what public law number will be assigned to it. It'll become effective at midnight today. And as I mentioned, Gene Santos said at that meeting that meeting was the beginning of his campaign to impeach the 8 senators that voted for the bill. Well, we don't have impeachment here for senators, but what we have is recall. A senator can be recalled. A governor can be recalled, and other public officials can be recalled. And here's what Section 1422A of the Organic Act says at subsection B. Any governor, lieutenant governor, or member of the legislature may be removed from office by a referendum election in which at least 2/3 of the number of persons voting for such official in the last preceding general election at which such official was elected vote in favor of recall, and in which those so voting constitute a majority of all those participating in the referendum election. So it takes, let's see, it takes it would take a petition signed by 50% of the total votes cast in the general election to get that recall on the ballot. And if it were on the ballot, it would just say something like this: should Senator Clint Rigel be recalled, yes or no? And if 2/3 of the, and if a number of people, which is 2/3 of the number that voted for Clint, marked that yes, Clint would be out of office. Who I can't remember who it was that referred to Dr. McNutt, but Dr. McNutt opines on that, saying the secret for the legislature on the recall aspect is that many of our senators were elected at below the 50% plus one level. Of 8 senators signing off on this recreational marijuana bill, Speaker Tina Rose Munya Barnes and Senators Joe St. Augustine and Regine Biscoe-Lee were elected at above majority levels. 5 of the pro-marijuana senators, however, were not. those are the most likely candidates for recall. Senator Louise Muñoz was elected with 15,884 votes, so her recall number is about 10,485 votes. In other words, if the recall election were held and about 10,500 people said yes, she should be recalled, she'd be out of office. And then you go down to Kelly Marsh, 9,507 votes. Tello, 8,159 votes. And finally, Jose Terlahi, 11,930 votes. I'm sorry, I read the wrong numbers here. For Marsh, it would be 9,507. For Taitigui, 8,159. And for Terlahi, 7,875 votes. And he would be out of office. So it's going to be interesting to see if Gene Santos really actually moves forward on this recall proposition. The closest we ever came to a recall was an attempt to recall Governor Gutierrez, and there are two ways that a recall can be initiated. One is by a two-thirds vote of the members of the legislature in favor of recall. So the numbers got quite close, but the two-thirds weren't there. I think it was in the days of 15 senators. As I recall, the vote was like 9-6, so the recall vote failed. So that's one aspect of the opposition. Now, I've heard people talk about, well, somebody's going to sue because this is against federal law. So for sure, somebody's going to sue. And that may very well be that someone will sue, someone who feels strongly about this. Perhaps a group of folks who feel strongly about it might scrape up enough money to file suit. But the a little bit more difficult question is, how would one go, who would one sue, and how would the suit be filed, and where would it be filed? Well, I don't think that jurisdiction would lie in the District Court of Guam, because the District Court of Guam is a, quote, federal court, and federal courts, with a few exceptions, only have jurisdiction over cases that arise under the laws of the Constitution or laws of the United States. In other words, if you have a right to something and someone is not giving it to you, your claim would arise under the laws of the United States. I suppose a clever mind could figure out how a claim under the Cannabis Act would arise under the laws of the United States, but I don't have time to go into that today, but you can bet I will tomorrow. So once again, you're going to want to tune in tomorrow to be really up to speed on the first day of legal marijuana in the territory of Guam. Let's hope everybody comes to work tomorrow.
Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Preparing congressional subpoenas for the Mueller reports. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
Mr. Chairman, the vote